Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Lisa Millette, and I work with RTI International, and I will be your host today. Before we get started, I'm going to go over a few housekeeping items for you. If technical support is needed, please let us know through the chat window or by emailing SAKI TTA at rti.org. If you have any questions regarding today's material, please type them into the chat window and we will retain them for the Q&A session at the end of the presentations. We will archive this webinar within a few business days, and we'll send out an email announcement to all who have registered, and this email announcement will also include a PDF copy of today's presentations. This is the Welcome to the National Sexual Assault Kit Initiative FY2020 webinar, and without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Dr. Angela Williamson.
Thanks, Lisa. Hey everyone, I'm not going to talk for long today. You will hear a lot from me when we have our SAKI grantees meeting, but I just wanted to welcome you all to the SAKI family. If you don't know already, we now have 71 grantees across 44 states, which is awesome. And the best thing about that for all of you is that whatever problem you run into, I guarantee a SAKI site has already run into it and has addressed it and has some really good handy hints for you. So my biggest advice to you all as you start your SAKI projects is to ask questions, reach out to all your contacts, reach out to your BJA SAKI team. We are here to help you. You never have to be afraid of reaching out or that you're bugging us. That is our job. We are here to make sure you're successful. And obviously leverage our partners at RTI. That is their job. They are here to help you with your projects as well. And you will have your site liaisons assigned to you. And they are to be your eyes and ear on the ground. We work closely together to make sure that you're successful in your projects and that even though you're taking on a lot of work and it can be really stressful at times, it can seem that you're never going to reach the end of your goals and you're never going to get there, we are here to keep you motivated and to give you all the help that you need. And I'm very excited today to announce that we have another person at BJA who is going to be helping on the SAKI project, and that is Carrie Hendricks. And she previously was the site liaison for the state of Kentucky. So not only is she very experienced in the prosecutorial field, she has firsthand experience running a SAKI project and also at the state level. So she will be a great resource for all of you. And so now I'm just going to hand over to Carrie to say a few words and we'll get started with the program.
Thanks, Angela. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Carrie Hendricks, and as Angela just said, I am brand new to BJA. I joined the team last week, and I'm honored to be here. I wanted to say congratulations to all of you for your new grants. This is a program that I have, as Angela mentioned, ran for the state of Kentucky previously, and so it's a cause that is near and dear to my heart, so I look forward to helping all of you be successful in your endeavors. If you need anything at all, that's what we're here for. Don't hesitate to reach out. Mila, I'll hand it over to you.
Great, thank you so much, both of you. So good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us today on the SAKI Welcome webinar. My name is Mila Hago, and I, as well as my colleague Lauren Troy, are the State Policy Advisors with the Programs Office at the Bureau of Justice Assistance. So in that capacity, we oversee the Sexual Assault Kit Initiative program, along with our colleagues Angela Williamson and Carrie Hendricks, we just heard from the Policy Office. And while we work closely together in this program and management of the award recipients, the responsibilities between the two offices within BJA do differ. So at the Programs Office, it is our responsibility to ensure that grantees are compliant with all the rules, regulations, and award conditions that govern the awards. And we work together with the Policy Office to ensure that any changes to your awards or projects fit within the overarching goals of the SAKI program. So some of the responsibilities at the Programs Office include processing the initial applications to ensure that they're complete, working with the grantees during the award acceptance process, which many of us are going through now, reviewing and approving progress and financial reports, reviewing and approving any modification requests to the award, and conducting in-depth monitoring of the award. So some of those aspects we will be discussing in the next few slides. And although we try to include the most pertinent information we wanted to share with you, I'm sure we left some things out. So don't hesitate to ask us questions at the end of the webinar during the Q&A session, or reach out to us afterwards. And it's also my understanding that these PowerPoint slides, along with the webinar, will be shared afterwards. So next slide, please. So with the transition to JUST grants, this year's award acceptance process has been a bit different, and we certainly appreciate your patience as we work through all of the obstacles and glitches. Many of you have reviewed and accepted your awards in JUST grants at this point already, while some of you are still working on doing so. And so a big portion of your award package are the award conditions on the award. So award conditions are terms and conditions of the award, and by accepting the award, you agree to comply with them. As such, it's really important that you review and understand all of the award conditions on your grant. If you have any questions about any of them, you should reach out to your grant manager, so myself or Lauren. And one thing that we have become aware of that I wanted to mention here really quickly is that some of the FY20 grants, the award condition numbering on the award document does not match the numbering in JUST grants. And this is an issue that is caused by the transition to the new system, and the JUST grants team is aware of it. So I just want to point out that we are aware of it, and it's on their radar. So some of the award conditions on your grant are standard, and they apply to all grant programs administered by the Office of Justice Programs, including compliance with the DOJ Financial Guide, audit requirements, reporting potential fraud, etc. There are also a few standard award conditions which are important to note, such as the requirement that all points of contact and financial point of contact, or award administrator and financial manager, as referred to in the JUST grant system, complete OJP financial and administrative management seminar within 120 days of receiving the award. So, please know that this training certification will be valid for 3 years, and award administrator and financial manager will need to complete the training again every 3 years. It's also important to know that all subawards under your award must receive prior approval from BGA. If you included specific partners whom you will be subawarding to funds in your application, and we approve the application, then those subawards are approved. But if you need to change your subgrantees or add new subgrantees after receiving the award, then that can be done through a change of scope GAM in JUST grants. There are also several award conditions that always raise a lot of questions, such as the submission of BGA published materials and FAFATA reporting of subawards. We urge you to please reach out to either Lauren or I with any questions you might have. One thing I do want to note here is that unlike in GMS, where we reviewed and approved your publication through a GAN, now you will need to submit your publication through a performance management tab and the award deliverables function in JUST grants. And we are working on more detailed directions that will be coming to you in the near future. So some other award conditions apply to specific programs, such as the SAKI withholding for funds for completed inventory, which states that the recipient may not obligate, expand, or draw down more than 25% of the total eligible award amount until a completed inventory and/or certification of a completed inventory has been provided to BGA. Another program-specific special condition is the withholding special condition for NEPA environmental assistance. And please note that we are currently revising our review and approval process of the NEPA checklist to ensure that it makes sense for our grantees who need to select a commercial lab through proper procurement process. And we will provide additional guidance again in the very near future. So finally, almost all new awards will have some withholding award conditions on the grant, and those award conditions are added during the application review process when an application might be missing an attachment, or OJP may not have had sufficient time to fully review a project budget and requires time after the award is granted to go back and address those issues. So by now, all of you should have begun working with either me or Lauren to get those withholding award conditions removed. And per the award condition, the grantee should not obligate, draw down, or incur any funds with at all until all the withholding special conditions have been removed from the award. So what that means is that you should not begin any programmatic or financial activity on the award until all of the withholding special conditions are done, are removed. Otherwise, they will be deemed unallowable. So if you have any questions about that or any of the other or any other special conditions on the award, definitely reach out to your grant manager. Next slide, please. So when you accept your award, you agree to comply with all BJA reporting requirements. And as such, you're responsible for submitting several different types of reports. First is the Federal Financial Report, or FFR, which are due quarterly, and progress reports. These reports are completed in Performance Management Tool Systems, the PMT, and then submitted in Just Grants. So the PMT includes quantitative performance measures, completed and submitted quarterly in the PMT, and then narrative questions, which are completed semi-annually, in addition to the quarterly qualitative data, and then submitted in Just Grants as an attachment for that reporting period. Please note that if you're not compliant with either of those reporting requirements, Just Grants will automatically freeze your funds until the reports are submitted. And the delinquent reports do count negatively towards your status as a grantee during risk assessment, so please do everything you can to submit those reports on time. However, with that said, we do know that there are several glitches in the Just Grant system as of right now, and as such, OJP has extended several deadlines in the past or has lifted the withholding of funds function for delinquent reports. So if you have experienced issues with the submission of either of the reports, please be sure to contact the Just Grants Help Desk and keep all of your outreach efforts in a folder for future reference. You should also keep Lauren and I in the loop, even though we may not be able to help you resolve the issue, but at least we'll be in the loop with the issues that you're experiencing. Next slide, please. So FFRs are due in Just Grants after every quarter, and you will have 30 days to submit the report for that quarter. As such, your first FFR for the FY20 SAKI Award will cover the reporting period of October 1 through December 31st, 2020, and will be due January 30th. Again, we're aware of the many issues with the FFR submission in Just Grants, and at this point, the withholding of funds function has been disabled. So if you have any questions about FFRs, please reach out to the OCFO Help Desk, and they will be able to help you get those submitted. If you do not have any programmatic or financial activity on your awards this first quarter, you may enter $0 on the FFRs across the board. And the rest of the reporting periods are listed on the slide here. The next slide, please. The BJA Programs Office reviews Just Grants progress reports on a semi-annual basis for reporting periods of July 1 to December 31st with a due date of January 30th, and January 1 through June 30th with a due date of July 30th. Since your project period for the FY20 awards did not begin until October 1, 2020, the first progress report should only cover the reporting period of October 1 to December 31st and must be submitted no later than January 30th. So if you have any questions regarding how to submit the report in Just Grants, you should reach out to the Just Grants Help Desk. We provided the Just Grants Help Desk contact information below. And finally, each semi-annual Just Grants progress report should include as an attachment a performance measurement tool or the PMT report that covers both of the reporting quarters for that reporting period. And this is all really confusing. Please reach out to myself and Lauren, and we'll walk you through the reporting process. Next slide, please. So I wanted to mention also that we understand that the SAKI PMT reporting requirements are extensive and require a lot of effort on the parts of our grantees. But I did want to reassure you that the efforts are not in vain. We do review and use the data which you report on a regular basis and in a number of important ways. The data helps us evaluate the SAKI program as a whole, and it also allows us to provide accurate responses to data requests from all of our stakeholders, including the public, through U.S. Congress, and also in addition, it helps us understand how your particular site is doing. It also allows us to make informed budget decisions, including future funding opportunities. If you're a recipient of multiple SAKI awards under the same program area, your reporting may be especially unique, and we encourage you to reach out to your grant managers with the specific questions, and we will help you determine how to most accurately report your data. Next slide, please. So allowable costs for all non-federal entities are those costs that are consistent with the principles set out in the Uniform Guidance 2 CFR 200 Subpart E, and those permitted by the grant programs authorizing legislation. So to be allowable under federal grants, costs must be reasonable, allocable, and necessary to the project. And they must also comply with the funding statute and agency requirements. So we strongly encourage you to reference the DOJ financial guide, as well as the SAKI solicitation on a regular basis when you're deciding if certain expenditures are allowable under your award. And additionally, please reach out to Lauren or me with any questions you might have, and together with our policy office colleagues, we will provide you with the most accurate assessment. So we've included some links here to the financial guide and the 2 CFR 200. Next slide, please. So beginning in fiscal year 2016, OJP implemented requirements for grant financial management training for all award recipients, either in person or online. And this is in reference to the special condition that I was mentioning earlier. So all points of contact and financial point of contact are required to complete the training within 120 days of receiving the award. So that would have been October 1st. So if you fail to do so, OJP will put a financial hold on your funds, meaning you will not be able to draw down any funds. And at the moment, OJP is not offering any in-person trainings, obviously. So please complete the training online as soon as possible if you've not already done so, in order to be compliant with the condition. And remember that you have to repeat the training every 3 years. Next slide, please. So we understand that there will be times when certain changes or corrections may need to be made to your award throughout the project period. And BJA requires that all requests are submitted through Just Grants by initiating a GAM. So no changes to your award are official until they're submitted and approved through Just Grants. When you submit a GAM in Just Grants, for example, let's say budget modification, you're in essence asking us to replace the previously approved documents, and as such, you really must submit revised documents for the whole award amount, not just the changes that you're proposing. Additionally, you would need to submit a letter of request that summarizes the changes that you're requesting. And we always recommend that you contact your grant manager prior to submitting a GAM to find out what kind of documents are needed for that particular GAM. So I also wanted to point out that the GAM types in Just Grants differ slightly from the GAN types we had in GMS. So this slide lists some of the changes you may need to make to the grant and the corresponding GAM that you would need to submit. If you're not sure what type of GAM you need to submit, please just contact myself or Lauren. I also wanted to note that no GAMs will be approved if you're delinquent on any of the reporting requirements until all delinquent reports have been submitted. Again, with that said, we know that there are quite a few glitches in Just Grants that may be preventing you from submitting your report in a timely manner at the moment, so this will not count against you right now. And finally, each GAM goes through numerous levels of approval and sometimes requires changes. So please ensure that you allow sufficient time for review and approval. And I recommend at least a month at a minimum. And once a GAM is approved, you will receive a notice through Just Grants. So with that, I'm going to stop talking and hand it over to my colleague, Lauren, who will take us through the rest of the slides.
Thanks, Mila. In this half of the presentation, I will discuss key areas of compliance and non-compliance and the expectations that come with being a SAKI grantee. So it is important to note that BJA conducts frequent monitoring of grant recipients to ensure that they are meeting their programmatic, administrative, and fiscal requirements. So some types of monitoring that we conduct include desk reviews, enhanced programmatic desk reviews known as EPDRs, and/or site visits. So we conduct desk reviews annually, which includes a review of your compliance to date, i.e. ensuring your performance and financial reports are submitted on time. During your project period, your agency may also be selected for an enhanced programmatic desk review or a site visit, which can be conducted at any point during the grant project period, if selected by the program office, i.e. Mila or myself, or the Office of the Chief Financial Officer, OCFO. Should your agency be selected for an EPDR or site visit by Mila or myself or OCFO, grantees will undergo an in-depth monitoring of their financial, administrative, and programmatic policies and procedures in compliance on their selected awards. Next slide, please. So in this next section, I will discuss some common areas of non-compliance that we typically see with SAKI grantees. And the first is adherence to the FFATA requirement. The Federal Funding Accountability and Transparency Act, FFATA, was signed on September 26, 2006. The prime awardee is required to file a FFATA subaward report by the end of the month following the month in which the prime recipient awards any subgrant greater than or equal to $25,000. The FFATA Subaward Reporting System, SSRS, is the reporting tool that federal prime awardees use to report subaward data And in this slide, we include several resources on the FFATA requirement. The second area of noncompliance you should be aware of is that the financial point of contact and point of contact must complete the financial management and grant administration training. And this is something that Mila already touched upon earlier, within 120 days of the award. So this particular requirement is also a standard award condition for all SAKI grantees. And again, it is important to note that noncompliance of this requirement will result in your funds being frozen. Another common area of noncompliance is that prime recipients often do not have sub-award management and monitoring policies and procedures. So grantees must maintain written policies and procedures for its subrecipient award process to ensure it meets the requirements as laid out in 2 CFR 200-303 and 200-331. These policies and procedures should have specific sections that address pre-award and post-award responsibilities, which I will discuss in just a bit. Next slide, please. This is a good segue to our next section, which is issuing subawards and procurement contracts under OJP awards. So we understand OJP grantees often turn to other non-federal entities to provide goods and services in order to fulfill their responsibilities under the award. They accomplish this through the use of subawards and/or procurement contracts. You, the grantee, must determine if your pass-through funds are considered subawards or procurement contracts. And there are significant differences between a subaward and a procurement contract, including how those entities are selected and monitored. And we have developed the following guidance documents to help clarify the differences between subawards and procurement contracts and outline the compliance and reporting requirements for each. This information can be accessed in these resources listed on this slide. Next slide, please. As I mentioned earlier, grantees should maintain written policies and procedures for its subrecipient award process to ensure it meets the requirements as laid out in 2 CFR 200. These policies and procedures should have specific sections. At minimum, the pre-award procedures should include the following: requirement to ensure that the proposed subrecipient is not suspended or debarred by the federal government, a process to ensure that the subrecipient agreement includes the required data elements, and a process to ensure that applicable federal special conditions are flowed down to the subrecipient award. For post-award procedures, at a minimum, your processes should contain a risk-based approach for selecting subrecipients to monitor, a process for on-site monitoring, a monitoring checklist that satisfies administrative, financial, and programmatic elements, and a process for documenting findings in a report, and procedures for follow-up on issues for resolution. So it is important to note that subrecipient policies and procedures should also include a process for closing out subawards as well. Next slide, please. As I just discussed subawards, I also wanted to talk about procurement using federal funds. As a reminder, all procurement transactions must be conducted in a manner to provide practical, open, and free competitions. Grantees should follow their local and state guidelines for procurement. So when you're deciding the specific processes for bids and timelines, you should use your local state guidelines as long as these do not contradict federal regulations on procurement. And we understand there are certain circumstances that may call for other than full and open competition. These circumstances may result in sole sourcing contracting. So to request advance approval from OJP to use a non-competitive approach for procurement contracts that would exceed the simplified acquisition threshold of $250,000, the recipient must submit a justification for use of a non-competitive approach in the form of a GAM through Just Grants. So in general, grantees may make the initial determination that competition is not feasible if one of the following circumstances exist. 1, the item of service is available only from a single source. 2, the public emergency for the requirement will not permit a delay resulting from a competitive solicitation. Or 3, after solicitation of a number of sources, competition is considered inadequate. So please note any sole source contracting that does not exceed the $250,000 threshold for approval should still follow the OJP financial guide requirements and be properly documented. Next slide, please. So as part of your procurement process, it is important to note that documentation is crucial, and you as a grantee must ensure you maintain all procurement-related documentation for BJA review. Regardless of the need for approval, all procurement decisions should be documented and evidence maintained for review. This also ties back to the compliance and monitoring conducted by BJA. Should your agency be selected for EPDRs or site visits, BJA would typically request this type of documentation for review. Procurement documentation the procurement documentation that should be maintained includes what was sent out, what was received, and how the decision was made. So each of the procurement contracts or subawards should have your own subfolder with all the relevant documentation, similar to how you maintain your own grant award file. And it is also important to note that when procuring consultant services, consultant rates should not exceed the $650 per day rate. Any rate that exceeds this amount must receive BJA's prior approval, which should be maintained in the procurement documentation file. Next slide, please. In this next section, I will discuss the closeout of your award. In a standard closeout, the grantee should initiate closeout of their award within 90 calendar days after the grant end date. You must also ensure that all administrative, programmatic, and financial requirements have been met, and all expenses must be obligated by the last day of the project period. Just Grants will begin notifying the grantee 60 days prior to the grant end date. An administrative closeout is initiated in 2 instances: on the 91st day after the grant end date, or if the grantee is unwilling or non-compliant or unable to complete closeout requirements. Just Grants will automatically freeze funds and initiate an administrative closeout and notify the grantee in those instances. Next slide, please. I know Mila and I just covered quite a bit of ground, and so we compiled this slide with additional resources to help serve as a guide and reminder for you of what we just discussed. So in this slide, we included contact information for Just Grants, OCFO, ASAP, PMT, as well as links to the SAKI, BJA, and TTA websites, and several other links to resources helpful in the administration and implementation of your award. Next slide, please. Lastly, we included our contact information for the BJA team. Should you have any questions, please feel free to contact us directly. And with that, I will hand it over to RTI.
Hello, everyone. Thanks so much to everyone at BJA for giving us the opportunity to come together and present some information to you regarding the National Sexual Assault Kit Initiative Training and Technical Assistance Team. And so just as a little bit of an overview, I just want to make sure you're aware that the SAKI Training and Technical Assistance Team is 100% here to support you. You're going to be hearing a lot from us coming up in the next few weeks. We're going to be very engaged with you. We really want to work collaboratively with you to support you through your SAKI goals. And I think it's just important to understand that as a TTA provider, we really want to not only support you, but help you work on a strategy and a strategic plan for getting through your award, but also really setting you on pace for reform and sexual assault response. So with that, Lisa, can you do the next slide, please? Okay, this is just our official disclaimer. So very similar to you, we are a grantee of BJA. So similar to what you'll have to do in your presentations, you would also have a disclaimer slide like this. Next slide, please. Okay, I think it's just important for everyone to take a moment and recognize that as you enter the SAKI program, that this program has been going on since FY2015 and has grown just exponentially and just really covering, a wealth of the United States. It's really a national program, the first program to really deeply address sexual assault response reform and really look at the root cause analysis associated with unsubmitted sexual assault. So we've grown to serve 71 SAKI grantee sites. There's a description here on the side that just kind of shows you the progression over the years. So I think it's important for you to look at, and I think Dr. Angela Williamson mentioned earlier that, don't be shy about your questions, ask your questions, and, take some comfort in the fact that probably there's a SAKI site that has definitely gone through what you're going through. And I think if you take a look at this map, you can really see that. We've got a lot of experience having supported the SAKI site since 2015, and we've seen a lot. We've worked through a lot in collaboration with all the other grantees. So again, don't be shy about your questions. We can get you through all the things that you need to for your award. Next slide, please. Okay. So what is the role of the SAKI Training and Technical Assistance Team? And we call ourselves SAKI TTA. We're going to provide to you, as a grantee, customized training and technical assistance. We really do want to assist you with addressing your long-term needs, including capacity building, interagency coordination, strategic priorities. We really want to support you with facilitate cross-site communication and learning. And I just want to pause there for a moment, because although as a TTA provider, we have a lot of expertise in our team and a lot of partners and consultants, which I'll talk about in just a little bit, but we really do foster peer-to-peer communication and learning. We recognize that, we don't want you to work in a vacuum. We want you to work with each other, and we want you to learn from each other. And sometimes the best way to do that is really to engage with another SAKI site who has gone through something similar. So we will help facilitate that for you. And it really is a community that is coming together holistically to address sexual assault. SAKI TTA also develops TTA curricula and materials that align with policy and implementation needs. And we disseminate and assist with implementation of evidence-based practices. So I think that evidence-based piece is important to remember. We are going to be giving you resources that have been grounded in research, peer-reviewed research, so strong evidence-based. And again, part of the reason that we function the way we do is we're not just here to get you through the short-term goal. This really is long-term planning. We really want to put you on a path of sustainability. And therefore, we really are thinking about how can we help you build policy that addresses an improved response to sexual assault. Next slide, please. All right. So just a little bit of an overview of some of the statistics as far as supporting the TTA that we provide. We do a lot of different types of TTA. So there's blended components, there's virtual-based components. When we get past the COVID situation, we'll go back to some of our in-person components as well. But you'll see in this box to the left that these are some of the major topics that we will talk about with you and how to support you through your SAKI role. You can see that it's very multidisciplinary in structure, and that's intentional. We recognize that to truly be impactful to sexual assault, you cannot work in a silo. So we will really help you not only build your multidisciplinary team, but also recognize the perspectives and learn from each other. And we do have a lot of resources to help build and function all of the disciplines associated with sexual assault. I think it's just important just to know that there is a wide scope of the TTA that we provide. So just as a snapshot, we have our statistics here. So again, the 90 on-site technical assistance opportunities and training events took place obviously before the lockdown with COVID. So we look forward to at some point actually seeing you in person again, maybe hopefully towards the fall. But even within virtual TTA, you'll see that we have 35 written briefs on 9 different topics, over 80 webinars completed. In general, we reach over 4,000 practitioners every month. So we are a large team. We produce a lot of resources. I'll talk a little bit about them some more, but don't feel overwhelmed. We are 100% here to assist you, and we will help you navigate through all of our resources. Next slide. Okay, so a little bit about the SAKI TTA team and our partners. So of course, the team is led by RTI International, and then we have the Joyful Heart Foundation, and we also have the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network. Those are our 2 advocacy large partner organizations that we can work with. We have Michigan State University, and primarily from there is Dr. Rebecca Campbell, who has done a significant amount of work in sexual assault response reform. We have the International Association of Chiefs of Police, or IACP. We have Equitas. So Equitas is our prosecution resource, and IACP, of course, is our law enforcement resource. And then we have Project Cold Case. This is a new partner for us. Project Cold Case is also an advocacy group, but it's a family advocacy group. So this starts to touch into going beyond sexual assault into our sexually motivated homicides as well. Next slide, please. Okay, so again, we are going to work very collaboratively and closely with you through your SAKI award. We're going to help you get through little bumps, big bumps, and we're going to help you strategize. And we really do design TTA for your success. So the first step in that is you're going to be assigned a TTA site liaison who will serve as your primary POC. Now don't worry, this is someone who's going to be very, very collaborative with you. They're going to be in touch with you. You're not going to have to dig around and try to find them. In a few weeks, we'll actually be hopping on a conference call with you to introduce ourselves more formally and talk through the role of the site liaison and how they can assist you. But in a nutshell, I like to tell people this is like your Staples easy button. Whatever you need, you just reach out to your site liaison and they're going to connect you to either resources, partners, people, SAKI TTA leadership, anything you need. We will, in collaboration with you, create TTA development plans. And what these plans do is it helps to organize and identify your needs and then our strategies to respond to them so that we can address, some of those immediate concerns that you might have, but also look at the long-term picture. And so it's a dynamic development plan, really. It moves with you. It evolves with you. So although we get it started, it's always changing because as you change, you identify successes and accomplishments, and then you identify additional areas of need. And so, again, we just kind of keep this a living document and work with you to fill it out. We provide flexible TTA processes for the sites to request technical assistance. So not only do you have your site liaison POC, but we also have a SAKI TTA help desk and email address. And there's also a way that you can connect directly with SAKI TTA leadership. So please don't ever feel like you are out of touch. There's multiple ways to reach us, and we will always be in contact with you. We provide very timely and responsive TTA. You won't have to wait very long for a response from us. If at anything you might hear something from a site liaison that says, I've received this, it's going to take me a couple of days to pull this together, or let me reach out to a few members of our team, but it's not like you're going to be left hanging, so please don't be concerned with that. And we're also going to provide the TTA in a variety of formats. We will decide with you what might be the best solution to how to present the TTA, but it could be web-based, virtual meetings, teleconferences, it could be in person. We have a lot of larger training events that you'll be attending as well. And so there's just lots of opportunities. And I think it's just important to remember that this diversification, how we present the TTA, really helps with the diversification across your team because people process information differently. So we want to be sensitive to that. And then just always to keep in mind that all of our TTA is provided by qualified subject matter experts, not only our partners, but we have a long list of consultants as well. So we have someone definitely who's willing to work with you, wants to work with you. In fact, I would say is even excited to work with you on all of your needs. Next slide, please. Okay, so just again, a little bit about some of the resources, and you'll get a lot more of this information when we start interacting with you one-on-one. But just kind of a little like overview, if you will. If you haven't been to the SAKI website, please do. I will warn you, there's like over 200 and some resources on there, so don't feel overwhelmed, but maybe just poke around on there, look at the different drop-down menus, maybe just make yourself a little bit familiar with where things will be, but your site liaison will always help you find things on the website and direct you through the website as well. We have the SAKI Working Group monthly virtual meetings. So these are important meetings. They're across different topics, but we meet once a month depending on the topic. And it's just an opportunity to share information across the site, hear from other researchers, hear from crime analysts, hear from other practitioners. They're really highly engaged and very discussion-based. It's not a talk at you as much as a let's all get together and discuss what's on the agenda for that. The SAKI Virtual Academy is an online learning platform which offers 5 e-learning curricula that cover the key concepts to sexual assault response reform. I guess something about the SAKI Virtual Academy that I want to mention is it's very foundational. So this is a great place to start if you have someone new to sexual assault or to sexual assault response reform. Also, if you're a new team just coming together, this is a great thing to view as a team It is divided up into different disciplines in the sense that there's a section that's just on victim advocacy. There's a section that's just on prosecution. There's a section that's on, creating your testing plan. So there's just a lot of different components in there. But again, we can help you navigate that and help you decide what's best for your team. And then there's the SAKI Toolkit. The SAKI Toolkit is on the SAKI website. The toolkit is just a larger housing of a lot of our resources, and it's designed for you to explore, save, and share. So it's interesting because it sort of works like a shopping network, but you don't have to pay for anything, okay? Everything is free for you to access, but you literally can just pull resources, put them in your briefcase, and you can send your briefcase to you and your colleagues. You can keep it just for yourself. You can move things in and out of your briefcase, and of course, we'll help you navigate that process as well. So just a lot of resources that are on a virtual platform, always at your fingertips and always available to you. Next slide, please. So what can you expect next, at least from SAKI TTA? You're going to get an introduction to your SAKI site liaison. So we'll be reaching out to you. Your site liaison will reach out, introduce themselves. And one of the first things we're going to want to do is set up a teleconference with you and your team, because we want to talk about how we can help you and work through some of those initial challenges and just really kind of help you get kick-started into your award. You will also receive an electronic SAKI welcome packet. The welcome packet highlights some of the key webinars that we think are very foundational and important for you to start off with in the award. We have an overview for a little bit of help with the PMT requirements. There's some guidance on conducting the inventory and creating or implementing a SAC testing plan. There's an overview for evidence tracking, victim notification, cold case investigation, and prosecution. These are some of the major key elements that we want you to get started with in this award and start thinking about your approaches to these. I think maybe one of the challenging things to recognize within SAKI is that you have to do several things simultaneously, especially within that first year and a half. And we're here to help you with that process. We'll also be talking about site visits and TTA development plans. Now, site visits at this point, we will not be able to travel in person, so we'll be doing virtual site visits, and we'll talk you through what that looks like. But of course, I do want to highlight that we do have this National SAKI Grantees meeting coming up probably very late summer, early fall of 2021, and fingers crossed, we will hopefully be in person for that. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is the key SAKI TTA contact information. I realized I neglected to introduce myself right at the beginning. I guess I just felt like you already knew me, but I'm Patricia Melton. Also is Dr. Kevin Strom. He's our director of the SAKI TTA program. You'll see the SAKI TTA help desk information there, of course, the SAKI TTA website, and of course, please do follow us on Facebook and Twitter, because one of the things we share in social media is your successes. So you're going to see postings not only about yourself and your accomplishments, but also about your fellow SAKI grantees and peers. So it's a nice way to keep in touch and kind of know what's going on with the other groups as well. We are available anytime you need us. Please don't hesitate to reach out. And I do want to turn it over back to BJA for some Q&A so that we can definitely get some of your questions addressed in this session. And Lisa, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe for Q&A, folks can either type into the chat pod or just come off of mute and vocalize their question as well.
Yep, that's correct. Thanks, Patty. It looks like at this time we do not have any questions. We do have a comment from Lila that says, just want to say thank you for all your help. And we do have another question, or the first question, a copy of the PowerPoint. We will be sending out an archive email within the next few business days with a recording of the presentation as well as a copy of the PowerPoints. And then we do have another question. Would you be providing any VICAP training?
So I think that's a question that Angela can probably answer best.
Hey, it's Angela. I was talking, but this had muted me again. Yeah, we provide VICAP training. There will be at least a whole day of VICAP training at the SAKI Grantees meeting, which will be later on this year. And we can also provide on-site training once we reopen and can travel safely.
And Angela, that training is for everybody in SAKI, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. That was a follow-up question. We have another comment. For those of you new to SAKI, I just want to say that both BJ and RTI are very easy to work with. Thank you, Lisa, for that comment. And we do have another question. Do we submit proof of online training anywhere or just keep a copy of the completion?
So you can just keep a copy for completion on file. We typically check for that when we do our annual desk reviews. We check on an internal database to see if a grantee is compliant with a requirement, and if we can't find any information there, we might reach out to you for those certificates. But you just want to keep it on file. No need to submit it to us unless we ask for it. Looks like there's one question about IT support. So it says I called the IT support number, but I was on hold for an hour. I'm assuming you're talking about the Just Grants service desk, and I do apologize for that. Unfortunately, I think they're really overwhelmed with the volume of calls that they're receiving about issues with Just Grants. So I would say send them an email if you have not already done so, and always feel free to copy myself or Lauren on that email, and just, keep track of your attempts to reach out to them. And I do apologize for the delays with Just Grants. I will say we're all feeling it, and we're all feeling the frustration. So just keep trying and let us know if you continue to be unsuccessful in reaching anybody, and we'll see if there's any way we can escalate it.
Do I need to submit financial report for period October through December if the award isn't accepted yet?
I don't believe you'll be able to do that. At least that's the way it was in GMS. So until you accept your award, your reports are not due. But as soon as you accept your report, if it's past the due date, they will be triggered as delinquent, and you'll need to submit them right away. At least that's the way it was in GMS. I'm not entirely sure if that's how it works in Just Grants, but I would assume so. OCFO help desk would be your best bet in terms of getting that question answered more accurately.
We have another question. Is there any charge for the national conference?
The National Grantee Conference is, there's no cost to the grantee. It's put on, through funds that BGA has awarded to RTI. And then you can charge the travel costs to the grant. So there's other than that, there's no cost associated with it.
And while we still have everybody on the line, I'm going to go ahead and launch some poll questions about our webinar. If you wouldn't mind just filling out these polls, we'd really appreciate your feedback. And if folks have any questions, please feel free to type them into the chat pod while individuals are filling out the poll questions as well. I see quite a few folks entering in their poll results. We really do appreciate your feedback, so we'll give everybody just another minute or so to finish answering the questions. Looks like we have another question. To clarify, it is unclear whether we need to submit a financial report would be zero if we have not accepted the award yet.
Yeah, so again, as I was explaining earlier, I'm not entirely sure in the Just Grant system. The way it was in GMS is that the financial reports would not generate until you accept the award. So the best bet for that answer to be answered correctly is to contact the OCFO help desk. They're the ones who review the reports, the financial reports, so they'll be able to provide you the most accurate answer. But the way that it's worked in the past is that until you accept your award, you're not required to submit any reports. And I'll hand it over to Lauren for a minute if she knows the answer better than me for this one.
No, I would also say to reach out to OCFO. I don't think that if you haven't accepted your award, I don't think it will let you submit any type of reports. I think that's just the way the system works, but I know we're all learning Just Grants as we go forward. So yes, I agree with Mila. You would need to contact OCFO.
I submitted the FFR with zero expenditure, but my FFR still shows delinquent.
Okay. I think that would be then that's probably a glitch in the system. So that is something you would need to notify the Just Grant Service Desk about. I would recommend sending them an email instead of calling them and taking screenshots of your issue within Just Grants and explaining the situation to them. Please be sure to include your award number, your DUNS number, and the full name of the entity.
And also to add to that point, once you submit successfully your FFR, it should say pending UFMS status. So if you see that status, that means that you submitted your FFR correctly. It should be in that status for about 24 hours, and then it should be moved to resolve completed. However, if you see that pending UFMS status for more than 24 hours, I would also recommend submitting a help desk ticket, documenting the issue and getting a ticket number so that we can help you escalate it if necessary, if you haven't received a response in a few weeks, I would say.
All right, I'm not seeing any other questions coming through the chat pod. Is there anything else that our presenters would like to cover before we close up for the day?
No, thank you everybody for attending. And again, if you have any questions, definitely reach out to Laura and myself or your policy folks as well.
Great. Thank you so much to all of our presenters today, and thank you everybody for attending and for participating in our poll questions. We really appreciate your feedback. As we mentioned earlier, we will be archiving this webinar and putting it on our SAKI website, as well as sending out an email announcement, and it will include a link to the recording and PDF versions of the presentations today. And as the presenter said, if you need to reach out to us, the contact information has been provided as well. And thank you again for your participation. We hope everybody has a good afternoon.